So I'll briefly introduce our first speaker. So Dr. Lyzz, commonly known Davis, is a senior researcher at American Institutes for Research. Dr. Davis's areas of expertise include college access and readiness and experimental design. She has led several applied research studies for REL Midwest, including recent research on the impact of school-wide college access programs and the association of dual enrollment in high school and early college success, college enrollment among rural Indiana high school graduates, and predicting early college success using data from the Indiana State Longitudinal Data System. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Dr. Davis to review the research.
Thank you, Ellie. I'm trying to get rid of my chat box and it doesn't want to let me. Uh-oh. And I'm getting ahead of myself. And I don't want to close out. Yes, I will start my video.
Hey Liz, this is Emily. Looks like you are all set from our end. We're just seeing your video and the slides.
Okay. I think I'll be all right now. It's very small. Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you, Billy, for the introduction. Like she said, my name is Lyzz Davis. I am a senior researcher with REL Midwest, and I'm really excited to be here today presenting to all of you on some work that we have recently been doing in Indiana. There we go. So most high school students, around 96, 97%, when asked, report that yes, they do plan to go to college. This question has been asked of high school students over and over for a few decades now, and the answer is always pretty much the same. But their aspirations for higher education, though, don't always match reality. Only about 2/3 of high school graduates continue on to college, but this percentage has been slowly rising in recent years. And for those that do enroll, only about 60% graduate with a 4-year degree on time, and less than 30% graduate with a 2-year degree on time. These figures are even lower, actually, for students who are in need of remedial or developmental education. So to address these pretty concerning issues, Indiana has made several policy changes over the last decade or so, maybe 15 years or so, including they've increased the rigor of their high school curriculum with the Core 40 curriculum. They mandated that all high schools in the state offer at least two dual credit courses and 2 AP courses. They revised their method for remedial education placement in colleges, and they've really improved their transparency with or through the College Readiness Dashboard, which provides college readiness and success data for Indiana high school graduates. A few years ago, we at REL Midwest conducted a study in partnership with the Indiana Commission for Higher Education to look at what high school students and school level predictors were associated with success in the early years of college. And we did so using the 2010 cohort of Indiana high school graduates who enrolled in a public Indiana 2 or 4-year colleges. So now practitioners and policymakers in the state were interested in revisiting this study with a more recent cohort of students, and we're also interested in exploring the role of receiving financial aid and what role that plays in college readiness and success. So we focus particularly on 2 types of financial aid, Pell Grants and 21st Century Scholarships. Pell Grants is as everyone probably knows, is a federally funded financial assistance program available for students from low-income households. The requirements are that you must fill out a FAFSA and be eligible for financial aid. For example, you have to be a U.S. citizen. The grants provide on average about $3,700 per year. The maximum for this academic year was about $5,900. And then to stay eligible, students need to make satisfactory academic progress each year, and that definition varies by the institution in which they're enrolled. 21st Century Scholarship is an Indiana state program that is open to income-eligible students. I'm not going to go very deep into this because Gina is going to talk about this a little bit later, but students apply in middle school and they participate in the program throughout high school and into college. The scholars must meet academic goals and throughout high school and receive college readiness supports. And as part of their program, they receive full tuition at public Indiana colleges, and in some circumstances, their college of enrollment waives other fees as well. So I just wanted to show you, in Indiana, this diagram shows that for the 2014 cohort of Indiana high school graduates who enrolled in a 2- or 4-year public Indiana college in the fall immediately after high school graduation, which that was our sample, there is a lot of overlap between these two types of financial aid. So what this diagram shows you is that most 21st century scholars, about 85% of them, also received a Pell Grant. But it's not true for the other way around. So there is a lot of overlap there, and we accounted for that in our method. So we had 2 research questions for this study. First, we wanted to know among our sample what percentage of students achieved early college success, and I will define this in a minute. This has anything to do with early college, high school. It's a term that we use to describe the set of outcomes. And then we wanted to know how these percentages varied by student and school level characteristics. And we wanted to know if the percentages varied by whether students received different types of financial aid. For research question 2, we wanted to know the association between these different types of financial aid and college success, while accounting for other students and school level characteristics that may also be related to college success. So how did we define early college success? There were 3 measures, and they're composites. They were dichotomous measures, either you got them or you didn't. The first was taking only non-remedial coursework during the first semester, and we measured this for everyone, but we reported it only among the 2-year college students, and I'll explain why in a little bit. Our second measure was earning all attempted credits in the first semester, and the third was persisting to a second year or showing up and being enrolled in the fall of 2015. And then a composite of all 3 of them. So again, we had a sample of almost 30,000 students. I wanted to again point out our criteria, which was very strict. They had to be students who graduated from an Indiana high school in 2014 and had enrolled in a public 2- or 4-year college in the fall of 2014. So we recognize that there are students who that could be part of this sample, but didn't fall directly into those 2 categories. So this may not be reflective of the entire population of these students. Just keeping that in mind. One more down. There we go. So for our methods, research question 1, we use descriptive statistics, just calculating percentages, and we use data from the Indiana Management Performance Hub. And for research question 2, we use a stepwise regression model to account for the overlap between Pell and 21st Century Scholarship recipients. That is, we added these variables in one at a time to better understand their unique contribution to the regression model. So what did we find? So first of all, in keeping with what we found in the last report, students who entered four-year colleges saw a higher rate of success than students in two-year colleges. The two-year, this is really small on my screen, but two-year colleges, students enrolled in two-year colleges are represented by the blue bars. Those enrolled in four-year colleges represented by the green bars. And again, we did not report on those taking a remedial education for the four-year colleges because there was such a small number of students taking a remedial ed by then in the four-year colleges because of the reform that they did with remedial education. So most of that was in the two-year colleges. Success definitely varied by students' demographic characteristics, and I'm going to just highlight a couple of them here. First off, in 2014, there were a few different types of diplomas that a student could earn. Some students, very few at this point, were earning general diploma, which was the least rigorous of the three. Most students earned a Core 40 diploma, which was reflective of the Core 40 curriculum that was passed. And then some earned honors diplomas, either IB or academic or technical honors. And I think that the interesting finding here is the difference between the Core 40 and the Core 40 with honors. It's pretty stark, but both among the two and the four-year students, if you look, Core 40 earned a Core 40 diploma is in blue, and the honors diploma is in green. And it looks like the rate of early college success for those with honors diplomas is much, much higher than the other two. Same story with taking an AP exam. It seems that students didn't necessarily need to pass their AP courses to achieve early college success at a higher rate, but simply taking the course was enough to make a difference over those who didn't take any. And we have seen this, we've done several college readiness studies for REL Midwest, and we see that almost every time in different circumstances. This next slide, this is for the difference between rural and non-rural schools, and this is really just to show that there's really no difference in success between rural and non-rural high schools. It just shows that rural high schools are doing really just as well as others in the state. And then finally, we come to receiving financial aid. So this is our regression model. To read this graph, and I'm happy to answer questions about it later, but so the line is at 0, meaning no change in the probability of achieving success. If the bar is below the line, and the gold bars are any financial aid, the blue bars are student received a Pell Grant, and the green bars are student received a 21st Century Scholarship. So that's the color scheme. So if the bar is below the line, this means that receiving that kind of financial aid decreased the student's probability of achieving success. And if the bar is above the line, this means that receiving that kind of financial aid increases the probability of achieving success. So as you can see from this graph, most of the blue bars, which are receiving students who received a Pell Grant, are below the line, and most of the green bars are above. So what this means is that those who received a Pell Grant but not a 21st Century Scholarship were less likely to achieve success. And those who received a 21st century scholarship, regardless of whether they also had a Pell Grant, were more likely to achieve success. So that's our big takeaway. So what does this all mean? Students, like we saw, and we've seen time and time before, students from disadvantaged backgrounds and those entering two-year colleges really have lower rates of early college success than their peers. Something very interesting that we found for remedial coursework, as I said before, Indiana revised the way they identified students in need of remedial education. So from the original study that we conducted with the 2010 cohort to now, with a 2014 cohort, we saw a very large drop in the percentage of students taking remedial coursework, almost half. We only report it for the two-year schools, like I said, since by this time, most of the remedial education classes were provided only at the two-year colleges. But we didn't see a commensurate increase in students earning all their credits or persisting to a second year. So what this indicated to us is that this change is reflective more of the policy change for identifying remedial education or those in need of remedial education, rather than an overall increase in college readiness. So Pell Grant recipients, like we said before, were less likely to achieve early college success than their non-Pell Grant receiving counterparts. But household income is associated with educational success at all levels of education, from pre-K through graduate school. And since receiving a Pell Grant is really a proxy for coming from a low-income household, our findings are not entirely surprising. Lower-income students may really benefit from programs like the 21st Century Scholarship that have an academic requirement, as well as a program that provides college readiness support in addition to tuition assistance. And as the results suggest, receiving a 21st Century Scholarship was positively associated with early college success, where receiving only a Pell Grant was actually negatively associated. And we see this relationship with Pell recipients throughout the country. Entities like the Education Trust have recently come out with recommendations for ways in which colleges can better support their Pell Grant recipients, such as promoting an inclusive culture, requiring academic advising, and taking the time to better understand and mitigate the barriers to success that these students are facing. And just to wrap up, I always you got to talk about the limitations of your study, and they have mostly to do with our generalizability. It's definitely good things to keep in mind. Our sample, again, only included those who enrolled in a public Indiana college, so any generalizability beyond the states, I would caution generalizability. The measure that we used for persisting to a second year of college did not include those who transferred out of Indiana to go to an out-of-state college past their first year. So those percentages may be a little bit lower, but not too much lower, because we weren't able to merge with any National Student Clearinghouse data to capture those students who went out of state. And then this, again, only included students who enrolled in college in the fall of 2014. So we didn't capture any student who might have joined after the halfway through the semester, or took a year off, or took a semester off. And again, there's a lot of factors that can be determinative of early college success, and we were limited to the data that are available through the Management Performance Hub. So we didn't measure all of those factors. And finally, this is, there's an inherent limitations to correlational studies. They can't detect causal relationships, but they do allow us to figure out what might warrant further study. So that is my time. And I thank you for your attention, and I will hand it back over to Billy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis.